From recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex, I'm your host, Steve Urban, and here is your Riderflex Podcast episode of the day. Fawn Germer on the Riderflex Podcast. Fawn, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
This is my pleasure.
So I want to know all about you personally. I mean, I see the professional stuff, right? We'll get into the books and the motivational speaker and all that, but give me some of that early history, the family stuff and your early career. Go for it.
Well, somebody did an interview with me a while back, and the guy's reading my LinkedIn profile, and he goes, "Oh my God, this is so impressive." And I said, when they write my obituary, I want it to say, she was a great daughter. She was loved. She had great friends. She was a passionate sea kayaker. She loved cycling and hiking. She lived at the beach, and she was a best-selling author and an investigative reporter and blah, blah, blah. Because I've always felt it's much more important to live in the big life than in the little one. And when we get too bogged down in work, we lose sight of who we are as souls. And I learned that young. I started out a workaholic. I rushed through my studies. I think I had my master's degree when I was 21, and I wasn't that smart. I just overloaded and got out and started working at a newspaper in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. And I was working day and night, and they had gotten hit by a wage an hour lawsuit. And that was, newspapers notoriously never paid overtime. But that was the one moment in time they said, we need to pay you for every hour you worked. And I happened to be doing a series that very week. So I kept having to go get my time card back and add more hours. And I got up to 83 hours and went into the executive assistant's office and said, "Hey, I need my time card back." And she just looked at it and she goes, "Geez, Fawn, is it even worth it?"
Right.
And I was 23 years old then. And it changed my life forever. For one thing, she became my best friend to this day.
Is that right?
Day, yeah.
That's cool.
But it always made me realize that time was more important than money. And so I always would take comp time instead of the overtime. And then I had really good parents. Okay. My mom always told me how important it was to face life. And when she was 66 years old, and I was working at the Rocky Mountain News in Denver, I get a call from my dad, and my mom had had a stroke that paralyzed her. And I mean, it was a major stroke. And she taught me more about resilience than you could ever imagine, because she fought back through that rehab, and she could walk a little. She got her driver's license. Then she fell and broke her hip and had to start all over again. And every time she got knocked out, she'd fight back every single time until she spent most of the last 20 years of her life in a wheelchair, and the last 10, she had Alzheimer's, but adapted so well to everything, found joy no matter what. And I mean, that was my hero. Certainly had more grace than I could ever have, but I learned because of how her stroke hit. I had seen her the week before and how quickly everything changed forever. I realized we don't get a do-over. And so as important as my career is, and it's really important to me, I work hard, I love my work, but it is not who I am. Who I am is somebody who is having a great life, who every day tries to find something magnificent so that I'm happy every day. And, I got a new book coming out. And so the work coming at me right now is huge. I could work 24 hours a day and still not be done. But I'm going to make sure that every day I do something that makes me laugh, that makes me have a great experience, and realize that I've had a day today that is not like tomorrow or like yesterday. And so I don't get into ruts. And a lot of that is because I learned that from my parents through their resilience facing obstacles.
What'd your mom and dad do for a living when they were younger?
My mom was a teacher. And when she had us, she stopped teaching. She backed my dad up in his business. He was a pharmacist who owns a drugstore. My mom was the smartest woman I ever met. Absolutely one of the smartest people I ever met. I don't always say that low by gender. I think because had times been different for my mom, she definitely could have been a U.S. senator.
Really?
But oh, she's that smart. I mean, figure
Wow.
my early books were on women's leadership, and I've talked to all these great trailblazing women, and she was smarter than all of them. She just was.
Right? Is
So
that right?
she taught me I could do anything.
Did you have brothers and sisters? It sounds like you did.
Yeah, I have an older brother, and we had a tempestuous relationship, and then finally figured out who we were. And it's a wonderful thing when you stop fighting. And I always tell people, don't, if you can avoid arguing with your loved ones, they're different from you. You don't choose them. But to have a brother that I'm so close to now that both of my parents are gone is a gift. But then also having that going through the COVID challenges, because I've got family. And so that's a great thing. Yeah. So he lives about an hour and a half from me, but we see each other regularly.
Great tip on family, by the way, especially with the holidays, and we're recording this on December 22nd. It is true, right? I've learned that as I've gotten older to just really just accept the family members for who they are. Stop trying to change them. Stop being irritated because they're not like me.
Right.
And just love them. It's going to be fine.
It's like, don't you get it? It's like, and then, politically, he and I were like that. But fortunately, he came to his senses this last time, and I'm not offending any of your viewers, so I'm not going to say, but he did come to the right side.
Gotcha.
In my mind, so that makes it a lot easier to talk.
How did you decide? I mean, you majored in communications, and then journalism for your MBA. So did you know you wanted to be a reporter early on? Was that the goal?
Oh, that was the only thing I ever wanted to do. I mean, when I was in elementary school, I knew I was going to be a reporter.
Okay.
What I didn't know was that it wasn't going to be the only career. And there came a point when I was in Denver, I had a real jerk boss. I call him the boss hole. And they weren't going to make me a columnist. And I wanted more. And he said, you'll never get any more than you've got now. You'll never be more than a reporter. Those legendary stories. And
wow.
But I knew there was something else, because a lot of stories were cycling through again, even though they were all different and every story is different and the people are different. It felt like I had done them, and I didn't know what was going to be next. And, that jerk boss, he got in my way. And finally I packed up my talent and went into management at the paper in Tampa, Florida, was close to my parents, and had trouble as a manager, strong woman who had never had any training for leading people. And I needed a book telling me how to be effective in a male-dominated environment. And there wasn't one. And somebody said, well, you ought to write that. And I'm like, I'm not writing something I don't know anything about. But I ended up interviewing all these great women and getting their mentoring wisdom. Well, I had this great plan. I quit my job to write the book, and I was going to do the interviews and sell it high 6 figures, maybe 7. And, this big bidding war. And then, Oprah was going to find it and fly me up to Chicago, and we would be best friends, and she'd have me for dinner at the condo with her and Stedman and Gale. But I did not expect that it was going to get rejected everywhere. And I had given everything up to write this book.
Oh, did you quit your job to write the book?
I did because all these people said you have to take a risk, and I didn't have time to do the book. It was just killing me. And I saved money, but I just didn't expect that it was going to get so roundly rejected.
Wow.
And I just kept taking the next step and the next step. And that's a lesson I always teach when I'm keynoting, is that you don't know how close you are to turning the corner until you turn the corner. So just take the next step. And the universe gives you every bit of information you could ever need. It tells you everything you need to know. And as I was getting rejected, a friend of mine who was she was a Rocky Mountain News and a Denver Post reporter, Carrie Smith, said, you ought to think about being a professional speaker. And I said, you can get paid doing that? Right? And she goes, yeah. And I looked into it and found out, you could get paid doing it, and paid really well. And so I started going to Toastmasters and learning that business. And then I got my book sold, and then it came out the day before 9/11. That first book is my 9th book's coming out, but that first one, day before 9/11.
Is that Hard Won Wisdom?
Yeah. So it gets rejected everywhere. And then suddenly it comes out day before 9/11, they cancel my tour. I have to fight. And I did that by just getting in the car and going all over the country and mooching off of all of my friends and getting media where I could get it. And my friends made it a bestseller. I wrote 29 letters to Oprah. It became an Oprah book. And then everything took off. It was
Now,
just
let me pause right there for the listeners. Took the risk, quit her job, wrote a book, got rejected everywhere. Then 9/11 hit, couldn't get the speaking engagements, but just kept fighting. And by the way, 29 letters to Oprah to try to get her to recognize the book. I mean, that's just tenacity. It shows that you just can't give up, right? You just got to keep going.
Right. And these stories really aren't about me. It's about everybody else. And so let's fast forward 2 decades. I'm a professional speaker. My money is out there. Now imagine during COVID, every single convention and conference cancels, and they all canceled the same week. And right. I'm watching what was going to be a really good year ago. Right. It's like, and I remember I was standing in my kitchen and I started to laugh. I laughed heartily and happily. And I said, I've been here before. I can do this. Because of what happened at 9/11 when everyone had given up, I learned your greatest opportunity to succeed always occurs in a moment when everyone else is giving up. And my 9th book is called, now think about it in terms of where we are as a country and what we're facing, Coming Back, How to Win the Job You Want when you've lost the job you need.
Perfect title. Perfect.
Right. And it's like perfect timing. And it's actually, the book looks at a lot more than getting a job. It's on how to, if you're getting shoved aside or being ignored at work, how to revive your career. But they gave it this title on how to get hired. And I'm like, I'm not going to argue on that because that's pretty good for right now. And so I knew when I'm laughing in the kitchen, I've been here before. I've fought through these obstacles. We are defined by what happens when we have an obstacle. That's our greatest moment to succeed. But what I learned with Hard-Won Wisdom is you just have to learn to identify an obstacle and say, oh, that's an obstacle. What am I going to do? And then you get past it. And the other thing is, if you think your career is going to do this, just keep going up and up and up and up, you're deluding yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody's career is a straight shot to the top. No, I've had a lot of success in my life. And in between a success, there'll be a drop and then I have to fight back. And I'm telling you, it is in those low moments that you find out if you are good at what you do or not. We are constantly fighting for the right to do the work that we love. And so particularly if as a self-employed person, every day I say to myself, self-employment is a privilege that must be earned. And so in a moment like this, when people are frustrated and some are panicking because it's been a long time, those people who give into that are the ones that create enormous opportunity to the people who don't.
Right.
Yeah. It's like all of the gold is right there for those of us who just hang in there and say, wait a minute. If 50% of the people are going to suffer and lose their careers, never be hired again, which isn't true, but let's just say that's what it is. If half of them are going to be miserable, I'm just going to go and be in with the other half.
That's right.
And when 2008 is a really good example, because when the recession started, I knew that companies that were laying off tens of thousands of people probably weren't going to have lavish events where they're paying speakers and spending tons of money on that. I thought, boy, I bet this industry is going to take a real hit. I bet they'll lose at least 30% of the conferences, maybe more. And I thought, so what am I going to do to get the other 70%? And I was having that conversation in my head on an airplane, and I just opened up a file in my laptop and I started writing a book that in 9 weeks I had this thing come out, and it was called Finding the Up in the Downturn. Now imagine, so you're a speaker that's going to teach people how to be successful in the midst of adversity like that. And I wrote that book as a paperback. It sold a lot of copies, but it really was meant as a press kit, because if there were going to be speaking events and somebody saw that I've got this book on resilience in this tough moment, my business, I think it doubled that year.
Is that
because
right?
I was the first one out with that. And I said, I'm not giving up, because
Right.
I know in moments when others are giving up, there's this huge opportunity for me to bounce back and succeed. And I'm going
It's
to
so true.
seize that. Yeah, I'm going to take it. Go
It's so
for it.
true. It's so true. Yeah, you're right. People that just kind of put their head in the sand and oh my gosh, meteors are hitting the earth. It's
Yeah,
terrible. Blah
right.
blah blah. Yeah, you can do that. Then there's people like Fawn, people like me, and others listening to this show. We just keep going. We just keep moving forward.
A- And when you get used to that, and instead of expecting bad, you just expect you'll find a way.
Mhm.
You find a way.
Yep.
And, I have notoriously bad feet. I don't know how I got up with, my feet are always hurting, but I'm somebody who loves to go and walk and hike long distances.
Mm,
So, if I'm going to do a 10-mile beach hike, the last two are going to be really ugly. They're
mhm.
going to hurt.
Yeah,
But I know that if I take left foot, right foot, left foot, and I just keep taking the next
just keep.
step,
You're right.
I get there. And that's what happens with our careers, is you just take the next step. And when
It-
when
yeah.
you get a moment of clarity, write down a list of 10 steps you can take to get further, and just take the next step, because there's always something else you can do, and sooner or later you get where you need to go.
That's right. And just remember, I think some people, they're battling things, right? Whatever it might be. They're taking care of a parent, they have some sort of physical ailment, whatever it is. Everybody's got an obstacle of some kind. And I think what's important for people to remember, especially as they get a little bit older in their career, like everybody's battling something. I actually had that thought this morning. I was on the treadmill trying to do my morning walk, and my arthritis in my back is killing me,
You're too young for that, dude.
I know, right? and and I'm kind of having one of those 30-minute sessions where you kind of feeling sorry for yourself, like, oh gosh, if I have arthritis at 53, what's going to happen when I'm 73? You're having one of these moments. And then I just kind of reminded myself, everybody's battling something. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're kind of like feeling sorry for yourself and you're like, well, I got this, or well, I got that, or I got this facing me, everybody's got something facing them of some kind. And so it's just so important to just keep moving forward and battling through it, because as life moves along, you're going to have hurdles of all kinds. Like you said, nobody's got it easy. Nobody's got the perfect little career. Nobody's got the perfect family life. Everybody's battling something, jumping over hurdles constantly.
Well, and that's the lesson my mom gave me. If you think about it, here's this woman in a wheelchair, fights so hard and finally
Right.
can walk, falls down, breaks her hip, right? Has to have the same physical therapists again, starting from square one,
Oof.
but fights back, does it again. 6 months later, falls, breaks the other hip. At that point, there's a lot of rehab, but that your only goal is to get her to stand, because there's not enough strength because of the stroke for that to walk again. And I said, you just keep getting up. And she said to me, it doesn't matter what happens to you. It matters what you do with it.
That's right.
And honestly, I would see, because my mom had a rough 20 years, and
Yeah.
I'd see people my age going out for lunch with their moms and shopping, and maybe having a good time and appreciating that, but probably not understanding what I understood seeing it, like just how sacred that kind of a connection and opportunity is.
Mhm.
And then I thought about what I had with having a mom who was ill for that much time and couldn't do most of those things. And then particularly with Alzheimer's, when they can't,
Mhm.
you get to a point where you can't even communicate. All
Mhm.
you've got is love. And I think we had the most intimate mother-daughter relationship over that 20 years that you could have,
Wow.
because there weren't these other things to get distracted by. It's just about love. So it wasn't a nightmare. It was a strange gift.
Does the Alzheimer's thing, does it scare you now? Do you worry about it for yourself? I don't,
Oh
is
my
that
God.
her? Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't have her grace. And if I forget where my keys are, it's like, oh my God, is it starting now?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
Uh,
I just hope somebody kills me before it gets to that point.
Yeah. But it's so important, with the stroke that she had. It's just a good reminder. Just enjoy every day. Every day, every
Yeah.
day's a blessing. Every day's a blessing because you just never know. You
Well,
just never know.
I learned one thing through that that's really helpful to people who may be listening to this too. And it's a coping strategy, because when she had Alzheimer's, it's not going to get better.
Right.
So that you're on a downward slide. And in that process, I learned that the faster that I learned to accept, cope, and adapt, the faster I could be happy with what I had instead of being upset about what I had lost. So it was always my job, accept, cope, and adapt. And so when the COVID stuff started happening, I posted a video, accept, cope, adapt.
Love it.
Because the faster you do that, the faster you get on with your life. And I know people who 9 months into this have not even accepted it. I mean, we see that constantly, don't we? And isn't that ridiculous? This has either brought out the best in people or the worst. And I think it comes down to our ability to deal with things. So when you're having trouble, remind yourself, accept, cope, adapt.
I love it. Before we talk about the book a little bit more, tell me about the speaking engagements. Are you starting to book now for 2021? Are they?
Everything is virtual, and then they're talking about events, but those contracts aren't in yet. So I think that they're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and they're trying to figure it out. So, and you're going to see a very different industry, because a lot of companies have seen they can do events online cheaper. And it's nice to sit here with a nice camera too, right?
It's okay. It's okay. I still like being around people. I just did a podcast release the other day. I did a kind of an episode where I said, hey, the mask debate, the COVID debate, are you for or against? Do you believe and I believe all that? Like, just put all that aside for a minute. Like, I don't care what your side is. I don't care what your beliefs are, but boy, I just kind of miss people. I kind of miss being around people. I miss
the energy of an audience.
Yes.
And then that whoosh after, where everybody wants you to sign their books and they all come up, and I miss people. I want hugs and all of that. But I know that's coming.
Yeah, I think so too.
And the other thing, this is another bit of wisdom that I will share, but I have to find out, am I able to say a 4-letter word on your podcast?
Yeah, sure. We do it all the time.
All right. This is my core philosophy when you hit tough times. Every shitstorm ends.
Right.
Every shitstorm ends. You don't understand that when you're in your 20s. And in your 30s, you really haven't realized it. But by the time you hit 40, you start to see that this too shall pass. Well, this will end. We'll get beyond it.
It's true. It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. I can't wait for it. I was just telling my friend the other day, I'm like, man, I miss seeing you at happy hour. Like, I'm glad we can go do that again.
or when you see people on TV, it's like you're standing too close together.
Yeah, I want to be able to not think about that at some point, hopefully. But okay, so you're getting some virtual stuff booked, and then the other. Okay,
and I've done that this year.
Okay, and then all right. So talk to us about this latest book then.
Okay,
how to win the job you want when you just lost the job you need coming back. Yeah, talk to me about it. Go for it.
So there are two kinds of comebacks. One when you've lost your job, and one when you're on a downward slide. Many people don't even know that careers sputter out if you're not constantly adding to your skills base, because your skills are dying. Companies are looking for ways that machines can do what you're doing. If you're not ahead of the trends in your industry, you're on your way out. You can't hunker down, keep your head low, right? People think they can, that they'll make it to the finish line. They won't. So you have to constantly be ahead of it. If you have the highest salary in the room, which veteran employees tend to, then you had better be able to deliver a heck of a lot more than somebody who's a fresh graduate who is right up on the latest technology. Because if you can't, you're going to be unemployed. If you are employed and you are rusty on skills, you go to these places in my book I talk about where you can get the skills you need. It's not going to kill you. It's not that hard, but you have got to not only get current, you have to be ready for the next 5 years, because they don't care if you're the best person for the job today. It's 5 years from now. And then if you're unemployed, which I look at that very hard, you have to find a different way of marketing yourself when you're out there, especially if you're over 40 or if you've had an extended time out, say you had a baby and stayed home for a couple of years, or did extensive travel, or took care of a relative. Well, finding your way back in means that you market yourself in a very different way, because you've got to beat the algorithm that weeds you out. So that's some real tough networking. And the whole book is pretty much tough love. It's inspiring, it's motivational, but it's like, okay, get with it now. You can't get by denying that you're going to have to learn all of this social media. And then, we delude ourselves. Yeah, I'm tech savvy. Well, if you're not as tech savvy as a 23-year-old, you've got some work to do, because if you're making more, unless you have really great leadership skills and you're in a company that rewards and respects that, you're going to have a problem. You've got to learn this stuff.
And by the way, if you're in your 50s and you had like some big accomplishments in like 1994, nobody cares.
Oh, I have a whole chapter called The Death of Experience. Nobody wants to hear you bragging that you've done something 100 times, or that you've been there, done that. The best quote in the book is from this guy, Zach Friedman, and he is an innovator for Nationwide. And he says, if you have 20 years of irrelevant experience, or 30 years, and you're up against somebody who has 2 years, a millennial who has 2 years of relevant experience, the millennial is the expert. And that's truth. If you are not relevant for right now and in the next 5 years,
that's right.
They don't care. They're not loyal to you because you did something before. They're not going to bow down because you know a lot about what was. The world changed. It got less friendly in that regards. And so it's on us. Now, the good thing is there are so many learning resources that help us so that we can get the information we need to know. And blockchain, that's a great example, because I had such trouble learning about how that one bit of data travels, and it's the basis of Bitcoin, but it's used in supply chain. And I kept trying to read up what it was, and I didn't understand it. I tried so many ways to learn it, didn't get it. And then I saw a YouTube video on how to teach blockchain to a 6-year-old. Watched it and I was like, oh, I get it. So then I could do the next thing. And you don't have to always be an expert in everything, but you need to know what these things are.
Totally agree.
Totally
agree. One of the things as a recruiting firm here at Riderflex, one of the things that is so disappointing and frustrating for me as the CEO of the company is when I visit with a 50-plus-year-old executive of some kind. They were a VP or whatever, and they just the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years, they haven't done anything to network. They haven't worked on their LinkedIn profile. They don't go to any networking events. They haven't learned anything new. They haven't added any experiences onto their profile. And they just think they can sit back and rest on what they did when they were 38 years old. And that just is going to guarantee them a job. And I see it all the time. They'll email me and they'll say, oh my gosh, I just lost my job. I'm 54. And can you please help me? Meanwhile, they have like 38 connections on LinkedIn and they haven't been active in 8 years, and they've done nothing for networking over the last, 10 years or so. And I just think to myself, you did this to yourself. You have to work on your profile and marketing and networking and learning and gaining new experiences all the time. Like you have to work on it all the time.
But if you didn't do it, you can get caught up. That's the bigger thing. It's like you absolutely can. And the first step is, of course, buying my book, coming back. But no, you can get caught up. You just have to make up your mind and then give yourself a few months of very intensive study, and then just constantly add a little something and add a little something. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, do you spend when in the book, how much time do you spend on the networking versus the learning? Is it split about half and half? And then the other thing I wanted you to touch on, I guess 2-part question is, talk about hey, your next job should be what you really want to do. Stop taking a job just to pay the bills. So talk about both. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, networking versus learning, they're equally important. And what I did with this book, because as a former journalist, I don't Google my ideas. I interviewed more than 300 people. So this was Fortune 500 CEOs.
Gotcha.
senior executives, workplace consultants, experts, recruiters, academics, and then
Good.
tons of professionals. I talked to so many people on this. The networking is the most important thing ever, but it's so much easier to do that now because you have access to people through LinkedIn and through Facebook and social media.
Mhm.
So you get access. Your friends know people who you need to know. So that's the one thing. But the other thing is, because we can web conference now, it is so easy to network because
I know.
everybody's got a little bit of time. Nobody's doing anything. So you make the ask. And the biggest part of networking is to make sure that you know the person as a human being instead of their job title, because people will do things for their friends.
Mm.
And the other thing is, when you need help, ask specifically for what you need. Don't just say, hey, can you show my resume to so-and-so? It's like, can you ask Steve Urban to see me? I need to talk to him this week because that opening is going to be filled soon. So I need to see him one day this week. Can you do it? And get people to leverage their clout to help you.
Good advice.
So that's it, and then the upskilling is just, that's a constant. You must upskill, but it's easy. I took a class in innovation not long ago from MIT for free at edX.org. You can take classes in artificial intelligence and in leadership in the workplace of the future, and just about anything from Harvard and Yale and Berkeley and Oxford, and all these classes are offered for free on these Coursera and edX. And you take the classes and you don't have to get an A in the class. You need the learning. You don't,
That's right.
You have your degree. So just get the learning so that you can say, yeah, I was taking this. Does that make me sound good? And I did not long ago, I did a leadership course at Penn on, leadership in a virtual environment. And now it makes it sound like I am so smart, right?
Right.
But I am not bucking for an A. I just want to get the information.
Ooh, good advice.
So that I am smart. So
we're living in unprecedented times when you can go online and get all kinds of free education that never was available at any other point in the history of mankind. I mean, seriously, you should take advantage of it. I heard not to go down a rabbit hole of whether or not you should go to college or not, but I heard Elon Musk the other day being quoted saying, yeah, I'm not really sure you have to go to college to learn, because you can learn it all free online. You might want to go to college to grow up and get the people skills and everything else. Anyway, not to go down that rabbit hole, but the point is, there's all kinds of free education online.
Yeah.
What about talk to me about this concept of moving from a job that you need just to pay the bills because you're stuck in a mortgage you think you got to have, versus something you really want to do.
Well, let's be realistic right now. There are people who are going to need to get money to pay their mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a friend who started a job yesterday. It is not the right job. Gotcha. I know it's not the right job. She knows it's not the right job. I said, you need it for 1 year. You need to get that on your resume and then figure out as you're there where you're going next. Because right now you may need a placeholder job. Mm-hmm. But while you're doing that, you figure out, are you at a point in your career where you can chase your passion? What do you need to do? And you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And if you're having trouble getting hired, you can make one of these great portfolio jobs where you're doing a little over here, freelance on this, and a little of this and a little something else. You figure out what you want to do and to create your opportunities. So I think we still can and must have work that's not work. I feel like I've never really worked, even though I've spent a lot of hours doing my work, because it's fun and it's passion. And so that's a joy, and we all deserve that, but we don't always have the opportunity to get that immediately, especially in a job environment right now with so many people are unemployed. You may need to just get something until you can get to the right thing. And the bigger thing is to be strong enough to say, this isn't right, and then constantly stay on that path toward getting the right thing.
Agreed. Yep. Totally. I'm all for taking a job that you need until you get the job that you want, for sure. Right. Yeah. Don't just sit at home and feel sorry for yourself and wait for the perfect job and then get 6 months behind on your mortgage. There's no reason to do
Right.
that. There's
Yeah.
no reason to do that. So, okay. So now the book launches what, January 12th?
January 12th, pre-order now.
Pre-order now.
No, not free order. Nothing's free. Pre-order.
Yeah. Pre-order. Did I say free? Pre-order your copy. And you can go to Amazon to do that. And I mean,
all your favorite bookstores have it for pre-order.
Okay. Very good. And did you do an audio version?
It's coming. I did the intro and the conclusion. I'm an audiobook fan.
Me too.
I know you have to have the right actor reading that book. And I said, I'll read the beginning and the end because I'm a speaker. You can tell that I love to talk, but I'm not a reader. So audio's coming out same time.
Did you get to interview the voice actor? Did you get to select, or did
I got to select?
Okay.
I got to tell you. So there's a, well, I'm not going to say this word, but I'll get to the point. So there's this point early on where I say that the person who's going to get beyond the adversity is the person who says, no, I'll say it. It's the person who says, fuck this. I'm not done.
Got it. Love it.
And so when I had to pick the actor, I just went straight to the word fuck, because I knew that if it had to be the person who had to get that, because that's the core of the book. It's like, we're not done.
Ooh, I
You
like
have to have that little bit of anger to say, I'm going to fight back. So I got to that point. I went to that. I heard the one who said it just like I would have said it. So I'm like, that's the one.
That's the one. Oh,
that's the one.
I can't wait. That'll be a treadmill audio book for me for sure.
Good.
So the audio version won't be out on the 12th, or it will be, or that's coming out later.
Well,
How does that work?
I thought it is. I don't, honestly, I may have lied. I'm not sure when it's coming out. It is coming out. I know that I've done my bit. I think they're up on everything. I just don't know when the release is. I'll ask.
Okay. How to win the job you want when you've lost the job you need. Coming Back by Fawn Germer, and launches on January 12th. You can find it anywhere that all your favorite book locations, right? Amazon and everywhere else. Very good. And what if the listeners can also follow you on LinkedIn and anything else that you want to mention?
LinkedIn, Facebook, I would come to fawngermer.com. And if you know anybody who needs a speaker, I'm looking for that. But
awesome.
It's follow me and contact me. I love hearing from people. It's so easy to track me down. So let me hear what's going on in your life, because I'm always good for a little bit of free advice.
I love your energy. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished,
thanks,
Fawn. Really awesome career. And thank you for being on the Riderflex podcast.
It was fun.
If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviewing. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get information and pricing on the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.